Okay, I'm back. It's been less than a minute. So, hi again. My name is Rob Wu, CEO and founder of COSBOX. And we're excited to share with you our webinar about peer-to-peer fundraising. So, small but mighty, mastering peer-to-peer fundraising for small nonprofits. This webinar is super exciting for me because since day one, since I started COSBOX 14 years ago, we believe in the power of peer-to-peer fundraising, and we've seen astronomical growth of nonprofits in terms of how they acquire donors, acquire donations through this method of fundraising, leveraging their community, raising excitement, and then driving a lot of donations. One of the first campaigns that we ran on COSBOX over a decade ago was with an organization that had a strong volunteer base, had a strong community, and they launched their first ever peer-to-peer fundraising campaign, raised over $150,000 in 40 days. And that was an amazing, exciting time. So we're excited to share with you some of the tips on how you can launch a similar campaign to see similar results through our webinar today. I am one of your speakers, Rob Wu, CEO and founder of COSBOX. Also, you'll see Jenna Notar Francesco from COSBOX too. She's excited to share some of the insights that she's seen over the past few years working with thousands of peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns. But before we start, let's talk about COSBOX and why we're actually qualified to talk about this topic. COSBOX is a peer-to-peer fundraising platform, and we make peer-to-peer fundraising really easy for small and medium-sized nonprofits. So we offer a software product that lets you easily launch a peer-to-peer campaign with no coding required. And we match that with hands-on support. So if you need help, have questions, need help onboarding, need training, our support team helps with that so you can get started very quickly, as well as run your peer-to-peer campaign without any hurdles. And very lastly, we do offer free fundraising education. So from webinars to blog posts to guides to resources, you'll get that from our education team. One of the latest ones that we just released is about ChatGPT on peer-to-peer fundraising and how you can use that. So if you didn't see that in your inbox a few hours ago, feel free to let us know. We'll be happy to resend that to you and post a link into the chat area so you get that resource for free. In a nutshell, what COSBOX really does is, from a product side, is we help you raise more in less time. So you can use this for donation forms, donation pages. You can use this for peer-to-peer fundraising, event ticketing, crowdfunding, all of your digital fundraising that you would need to do in order to get donors online. You can use COSBOX to do that with no coding required. So make it really easy for you to do that. One of the pieces that is super popular on our platform are our donation pages. Instead of using something that's very clunky, very outdated, very hard to use for donors, you can spin up as many different donation pages and donation forms for your fundraising appeals, for your events, and even for your website donations. All of our donation forms have the modern payment methods such as Apple Pay, Google Pay, Venmo, PayPal, all that stuff built into our platform. One of the exciting parts that I really love about our donation form as well is that the ability for you to do one-time gifts, recurring donations, as well as more complex pledge donations as well. You can also use COSBOX for peer-to-peer fundraising events. So you can sell tickets, whether it's free tickets or purchase tickets. So folks can go in there, purchase a ticket, as well as do some peer-to-peer fundraising alongside your fundraising event. And very lastly, over here, the hot topic of today really is around peer-to-peer fundraising. So we make it hands-free for you to run your peer-to-peer fundraising campaign all the way from start to finish, no coding required, no IT person required. Anybody can run a peer-to-peer campaign and be successful doing that on our platform. If you're looking for more info about COSBOX, what it is, whether it's about our education or whether it's about our product, feel free to go to cosbox.com/schedule a demo, and we'll be happy to schedule a time with you to walk through COSBOX or to have a consultation to see if it's a good fit. Or if you want rather do something that's more recorded, we do have on-demand demos that you can just watch at any time. So no person, no scheduling required. Lastly here, free fundraising tips. As I mentioned before, as part of our offering, not only are we a product company, but also we do offer tons of free education. So if you're not signed up for our blog, which you'll get a newsletter every week, it's cosbox.com/blog. tons of free fundraising tips and guides. All right, so let's talk about our webinar today. In terms of the agenda, we want to talk about a few topics. We'll first talk about kind of what is peer-to-peer fundraising, the importance of it. How do you set fundraising goals as the next phase? So after you determine it's important, you want to do one. How do you really set a peer-to-peer fundraising goal? What are some of the benchmarks and metrics that are common across small peer-to-peer campaigns? We have some hard metrics to share with you so you can benchmark your fundraising goals against it. And then from there, the next phase is about how do you develop a recruiting plan? How do you engage your peer-to-peer fundraisers so you get them to take action as part of your peer-to-peer campaign? From there, the next phase, it really is about how do you create a peer-to-peer campaign site? It's very difficult to do on your own website. It's very difficult for you to build on your own. So how do you use something like COSBOX or another kind of piece of software in order to power your peer-to-peer campaign? And then from there, our latest and greatest, we have some tips on how do you use AI to generate a lot of the content for your peer-to-peer campaign, whether it's emails or receipts or fundraising appeals, and how do you leverage these third-party tools to easily spin up your communications plan for peer-to-peer fundraising. And then very lastly, how do you measure the success around your peer-to-peer campaign? And then we'll wrap up with some Q&A. So I'm going to hand it over to Jenna to take us through the first part.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rob. I'm so excited to go through the importance of peer-to-peer and all the rest of our insights today. So first, we're going to jump into why peer-to-peer fundraising is important to you for any small to medium organization. So why is it important? It's pretty easy. So yeah, it's easy to know why it's important because it's just easy to do. It's an easy fundraising strategy. It's very effective and it boosts ROI and it increases retention of all of your supporters. And I'm going to sort of break down, why each of these bullet points are applicable to peer-to-peer fundraising as we learn about peer-to-peer fundraising now. So essentially, peer-to-peer fundraising relies on your peers to reach out to others on behalf of a cause. So basically, fundraising, you're basically putting your peers, you're activating people on your behalf, your supporters, to reach out to their social networks through personal and team pages. It could also be known as social fundraising, but basically it enables your nonprofit to increase your reach in a very easy way because the people who you activate to fundraise on your behalf essentially become your marketers. And by the number of people you're able to ask and activate to fundraise on your behalf, that's the amount of potential new donors and new networks that you're able to tap into and reach that you might not be able to reach on your own. So yeah, it's been a staple in the fundraising community for years now. And there are so many examples of how you can activate your existing supporters to raise funds on your behalf. And if you think about it, it allows individuals to participate in reaching and achieving your mission's goals in different ways. Perhaps an individual might really, really love your mission and your organization and they're behind you, but maybe they don't have the funds to donate right now. Peer-to-peer fundraising gives more opportunity for people to participate alongside of you by being a fundraiser and, vice versa. A donor could be a fundraiser and a fundraiser could be a donor. So it really kind of just expands the amount of people you can reach and the amount of new donors you can reach, and also gives people more ways in which to participate and make change in your community. So right here we have this little campaign diagram, how a peer-to-peer campaign is structured. So you've got, your main campaign site, your landing page. It's the hub where people, see your story of what you're trying to achieve for your mission and for your people. And then it's broken down into various pages. So You can invite individuals to fundraise on your behalf. That's where the fundraiser line is. So maybe you just want to invite a bunch of people in your community to fundraise on your behalf. They'll sign up as individual fundraisers, but maybe say groups of people that sign up would like to raise funds together and have their funds reflected on a larger team page. Then you can add that second tier where you see the team circles. And so we sort of have this organic hierarchy of both people and also groups of people being able to raise funds on behalf of your organization. And finally, of course, the donors, which are targeted by, the fundraisers. They're, specifically reached out to by your fundraisers and your teams of fundraisers. And typically these fundraisers, their donors will be their friends, their family members, people who they know personally. That's why this is a personal ask. And that's why I think peer-to-peer campaigns are so effective, because this is not just, some stranger or some, unknown nonprofit reaching out to donors. Now you have a personal face that's attached to your organization. And usually people, if they see that their friends and family are committed to a cause, they will be more likely to commit to that cause as well. So I just have here that, team pages are optional. A lot of times it's really helpful if you want to sort of garner more of a competitive edge to your campaign. You can increase friendly competition and also that sense of community by creating team pages and allowing people to create team pages. It's also great for organizations that you might want to have for maybe a group of board members or volunteers or your staff. They can be represented under one team page, but completely optional. As I mentioned before, it's super easy, and there are so many different types of peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns you can launch. They can be event-based, like virtual galas and walks, runs, and races, or plunges, bowl-a-thons, giving days like Giving Tuesday, any capital projects, program campaigns, annual fundraising, or even the do-it-yourself and other third-party sort of supporter fundraising campaigns. They could be partner fundraising or memorial and tribute-based challenges, weddings, DIY campaigns, etc. This is just one example of a Giving Day campaign on COSBOX. This is from Council for Exceptional Children. This was their 2022 Giving Tuesday campaign. It was very successful. You can see they exceeded their goal by almost $5,000. And they ran peer-to-peer, and they were able to easily customize their peer-to-peer appeals and share out to social media easily. And then similarly, Mentor New York, this is one example of a different type of peer-to-peer campaign. They ran a virtual awards ceremony. This sort of falls in line with the gala example, as I had mentioned. And as you can see in the second graphic, it's an image of their appeal text that will fall in line under all of their stats, and it's completely customizable. And we're going to get into the ins and outs of creating a campaign on COSBOX. But as you can see, you can really design and tell your story in a custom way. You can add graphics and video, and it's just very simple and easy to get up and running. I wanted to run through some advantages of small nonprofits, which is why it makes it so easy and effective from my first slide. So the first advantage of smaller nonprofits is that you have the best ability to have one-on-one interactions with people. There's just, you know what your community needs, and you have that one-on-one personal touch. And so that ability to get very, hands-on in your community is one of your greatest assets and advantages. The second part is that you don't have to cut through any bureaucratic red tape. You can make a plan, and a lot of times, if it's a lean organization, then changes can be made and implemented easily with your leadership. So definitely take advantage of that ability. And thirdly, you can pivot strategy very quickly as a smaller to medium-sized nonprofit. So with all of these three attributes, peer-to-peer is very advantageous because these campaigns are super quick to get up and running. And all that it really takes is a little bit of strategy in creating your content, and then people can get off and running, raising funds on your behalf. We have seen organizations that use peer-to-peer fundraising to raise more than twice the amount of funds. And yeah, that's very, very, as opposed to other digital fundraising methods, it's actually exceptional. Amy Kazmarek from SOS Children's Villages says, I think it was so easy for everybody to use peer-to-peer fundraising on COSBOX. It just flowed. I had all generations and levels of users. It was just that easy to use. Yeah, and I really appreciate that, her quote here, her testimony here, because it does also cut across all generations of users. Anybody can get up and running, share their page out, and also make a donation to the page. We've had organizations on COSBOX raise, 16 times the amount of their goal, or even 6 times the amount of their goal. And so, 2 times the goal, there's no set amount that, you can't raise more than that. But for example, JASA was one of our most recent organizations from last year that was able to double their funding goal. They did a great campaign for, their hashtag class for hashtag senior year. This is a senior citizen sort of like recreational organization. So they host a lot of activities for the people in their community. And I'm going to actually share this campaign a little later just so we can see some of the details, but definitely a must. So let's talk about setting fundraising goals and metrics for your peer-to-peer campaign. So you want to start by being very specific and intentional about your goals. And one way that we define specific goals here, we call them SMART goals. So the acronym stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So this slide, we're going to cover the first 3. So when you think about setting specific goals, you want to first determine what you see as the ultimate result. So be very specific in the context of your fundraising and be very clear about your financial goal and what meeting that goal will do for your organization. And here I just listed some specific examples of goals. Again, first, you'll need to determine how much you must raise or how many donors you plan to acquire during the campaign. And then you can further clarify your goal as described in the measurability. So for number 2, measure, you'll need to be able to measure your success. So it's definitely easy when talking about monetary donations, right? We can see the number of donors, we can see percentages of returning donations. So to determine whether your goal can be measured, you can outline how much you need to raise, who will be tracking the progress toward the goal, and how you'll know when to reach your goal. So tracking is definitely necessary for both the fundraiser and the donor, just to give a clearer picture of where you are in the process. Right. And it's also very helpful to boost your team morale. If you can track the progress and show everyone how close you are to reaching that monetary goal, it's definitely going to be a huge boost, especially if they're able to quickly attain their goal. And then for attainable, this is a point that basically just means you want to set a realistic goal for yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to, undervalue anything. But if you're a part of a nonprofit or other service organizations, chances are you're familiar with some limited budgets that impact the scope of work. So basically, if you're a nonprofit with a small operating budget, then it's best to start with a goal that stretches but doesn't seem too outrageous. And then, so here I just listed out some things that you can ask yourself as you are starting to set some of your attainable goals. Yeah, so we're going to move on to the relevant component. What makes it relevant is basically you're going to determine if the goal works for your organization. So relevancy is just absolutely necessary in fundraising. You've already established how much you need to raise and how you'll measure it, but your goal should also directly relate to your mission, okay? So if you're raising, for example, $10,000, then you're going to want to pinpoint exactly who's benefiting from the money. That's basically all it means. And then lastly, time-based. The last factor to consider when you're creating goals is your timeline. So it should have a start and an end date. And these dates are pretty important for the organization's budget, but also they're necessary to motivate your team members and donors into action. So shorter campaigns, they're usually under 30 days. You can make it easier on the easier as a fundraiser. That's because the shorter timelines give donors a greater sense of urgency. But basically, you'll want to state your start date, your end date, and the steps that that can be taken at the present time, and create an outline of where you should be on important points of the campaign. But having a timeline can basically just keep everyone on track for success, and it's a great way to keep everybody motivated in the same timeline. Here's just like a visual example of a SMART goal being written right on the campaign site. This is for CBM's Active in Mission campaign that they run every year. So they said at the bottom, they stated their main overall goal is $60,000 raised towards kids' education programs. And then on their right column, they sort of detailed out how that's broken up. They said you could choose to donate $25 to support a child's learning for a month or support a full year for $300. So they're able to quantify how much money would go towards one of their goods or services that they're providing their students. And now I'm going to hand it over back to Rob to go through some stats.
All right, so SMART goals, super important, keeping it specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So in order to make it more specific, as well as to make it more relevant, we ran this COSBOX peer-to-peer data study. Essentially, it was a segment of our 2022 peer-to-peer fundraising data. I wanted to kind of give this information because it helps small nonprofits really benchmark to see what kind of fundraising goal they should set, what is the average, what should they expect, what should they expect at peer-to-peer fundraisers to raise, all that good stuff. So I just want to run over this really quickly because I think it'll be really valuable information as you set your fundraising goals and your fundraising amounts to figure out, okay, is this realistic? And does it meet kind of like the small, medium-sized nonprofit size? So we looked at about 1,000 campaigns, which is just a segment of kind of what we do. And that ended up being about 47,000 peer-to-peer pages. So these are your personal fundraising pages. And we excluded a lot of the folks that didn't get activated, meaning that they created a page, but for whatever reason, didn't figure out how to raise funds or didn't send it out to their friends and family or kind of just went a different direction. And it ended up being about 29 million in donations to these peer-to-peer campaigns. So what was really interesting is that the average campaign raise for these peer-to-peer campaigns in this next slide is $27,000. So typically for kind of a small and medium-sized nonprofit, per peer-to-peer campaign, they're setting a goal of $27,000 for a campaign raise. On average, for average donation that they typically see is around $74. Which is about right in terms of when we look at the broader COSBOX platform as an average donation. And when you look at the donations, it's the average donation to a personal fundraising page. And what's interesting is that this amount is almost doubled when you look at the donations that go directly to the donation page, the donation form on the general peer-to-peer campaign site. So these are donations, $130. These are donations that folks did not donate to a personal fundraising page, but still participated in a peer-to-peer campaign by just making a one-time gift. So what's interesting about this is that peer-to-peer fundraising not only is a way for you to activate your network so you can get new donors and reach new people, but also it's a great way for you to engage in your existing network of donors and have them participate and make a donation. And typically, you'll see a higher gift amount because of that. 80% of the funds raised was raised online, while 20% of the funds raised was raised offline. So what this tells you is that when you're running a peer-to-peer campaign, you'll get a ton of donations just through the online platform, online donation pages, but you'll still get a great amount of donations that come offline. So checks and cash, whether it's from peer-to-peer fundraisers, their friends and family kind of handing donations to them to pass on to the nonprofit, or an existing supporter making a donation through a check or some other mechanism. So as you're running a peer-to-peer campaign, one of the recommendations is just don't rely fully on your donate button. You may want to put in additional info about how folks can make offline gifts or how peer-to-peer fundraisers can get credit for offline gifts as well. When we look at this data too, what's interesting is that most of the donations go to the peer-to-peer pages, which makes sense. The 87% of donations go to peer-to-peer pages just because these are the folks really driving activity, driving stories, driving social posts. So they get the bulk of the donations, while 13% of the funds raised are from the general page. So in a sense, you can think about how a lot of donations that are raised on peer-to-peer fundraising actually come from your base, but the bigger amount comes from just the friends and family of your peer-to-peer fundraisers, which are predominantly first-time donors, which provides you a great opportunity to fill the top of the funnel of your donors, provide stewardship, and then upgrade these folks into returning donors, mid-level donors, and eventually major gifts. When we look at this data too, what's interesting is that 34% of peer-to-peer pages actually raise funds. So there's a lot of attrition. So folks who create pages, not all of them go on to actually being successful in raising funds. So 1 out of 3 actually make it through. So as you're putting together your recruitment numbers, your fundraising goals, you kind of need to think about, okay, if I want to get 10 fundraising pages actually raising money, then I actually need to recruit 30 people in order to create pages. So that's one way to think about it. Other way to think about it is in terms of average funds raised. So on peer-to-peer campaigns, when we did this study, it's about $795 per active peer-to-peer page. So one of the things you want to think about as a small nonprofit is if you're expecting your peer-to-peer pages, all of them to raise $5,000 each, they may not be realistic when the average that we see on COSBOX is about $795. And very lastly, the average number of donations is around 10 to 11 donors per peer-to-peer page, which corresponds to the average donation amount that I spoke about before. So all this is very interesting. It's a lot of data too. So one of the things that we put together is our peer-to-peer calculator. So as you set in your fundraising goal, this is a free Google sheet that you can use where it has a lot of these inputs already in the sheet itself. And you can just kind of fill out what is your fundraising goal, and then it'll just output all these calculations for you in terms of the number of peer-to-peer pages you need to recruit, donation amounts, all that good stuff. So yes, we did share a lot of data, but we have a calculator for you to use. And Jenna just pasted it into the chat. So feel free to use that. It's completely free, no sign-up required. And then you'll see a lot of these assumptions and these metrics and benchmarks in that Google sheet.
Awesome. So let's talk about how to recruit and engage your peer-to-peer fundraisers. This is super important because you want it to be the right fit. You want your peer-to-peer fundraisers to be the right candidates for your mission here for peer-to-peer. So really, we see that the best candidates for peer-to-peer are the people who are the most excited about your organization and what you're doing. They need to be energized. They need to be people who are going to go out there and really advocate for you. So those would be people like your board members, staff members, volunteers. Those are great opportunities there. Other partners, maybe partnering organizations in your area, you could reach out to returning donors or higher level donors to see if they want to contribute in an additional way besides just offering a donation. It could be program alumni or even past event attendees. Again, the main part is that they want to advocate on your behalf, and they really are motivated to do that. So just a couple of quick tips on recruitment. Consider doing a soft launch to ask a few of your select people to start fundraising first. Typically in a peer-to-peer campaign, we have like a couple of different phases, right? We'd usually recommend to have a soft launch, which is a time period in which you make the asks to those few fundraisers who you want to get up and running, get the campaign up and running. And then they'll be able to create their page and start processing a few donations. And during this time, it's basically ramping the campaign up for the actual launch, the public launch across the board to everyone, so that when you do the launch, you'll have some money in the bank already, so you already have some donations to get people interested in and start to get activated towards donating towards your campaign. So that's during the first 2 weeks. And then you'll want to use some different channels to recruit your fundraisers. Because it's this is a very personal method of fundraising. The way in which you approach your fundraisers should also be personal, I think. However your fundraisers and donors like to be contacted, I think you can, implement those methods. Maybe not everybody, uses phone calls. Not everybody responds to their email. So you want to have a varied and multi-channel approach to your recruitment and make a really personal ask. And then consider doing a webinar training to help fundraisers get set up for success. This is, definitely a great idea, because I think having that media aspect to, having more of a more engaging way to train fundraisers is a little bit exciting and advantageous. If that's like not an option for you, just creating some materials. Actually, COSBOX has some onboarding articles as well. But as long as you can fully train your fundraisers, that's how you're going to set them up for success. So Kelly McLaughlin, who is the founder of Fit Strategic Consulting, says, I think our main takeaway is that when it comes to online fundraising, you have two options to expand. You can either recruit more fundraisers, or you can empower the fundraisers you have to raise more money. And that is so critical. I think, anybody can just invite lots of people to fundraise on your behalf, but if the fundraisers don't know what they're doing, then the chances are there won't be as much success. And Kelly has so many years of experience working with organizations to increase individual giving and also their peer-to-peer output. So definitely a huge takeaway. And so the solution to equipping fundraisers is to provide them with a guide. We call this the Fundraising Toolkit. It's pretty standard now, but it's definitely imperative. It's so critical to give fundraisers a tool, because these people who are fundraising for you have probably zero fundraising experience so far. They didn't go to school to be a fundraiser. They probably didn't work in a development office. They have everyday jobs, or maybe they're parents or caretakers, or they could be doing anything during the day, but maybe they don't have experience being a fundraiser. So this is where you can help them out and give them the tools that they need to feel confident to ask for money. So you want to give them with a campaign overview. This can be provided in your toolkit. Basically, you just want to outline the basic mission of the campaign and any expectations of the fundraiser. That would be, how much you expect them to raise over a certain period of time, going back to those, the timelines and the SMART goals. You'll want to include your brand guidelines. So that can include, graphics and logos, as mentioned here. If you're providing the email templates, that can also include your brand tone and the strategy you have there. We have some, the ability to add social media content and posts. Basically, if you can give them some templates to use, you want to give them the actual templates and the schedule for them to actually send those messages out to their friends and family. So you give them a few email templates, a few social media templates, tell them when to post them, and voila, that's it. Then they know, oh, today on April 13th, I just post this to Facebook and Instagram, done. So yeah, it's a really, it's definitely effective and highly recommended to create a sample toolkit. It might take a little bit of time in the front end just to get all the material together, but it will definitely pay out in rewards on the success of your fundraising. We have this sample toolkit article where you can actually download, I think it's like 10 example toolkits for you to get some ideas from, and some email templates for yourself. So definitely check that out and sign up. You just have to add your name, and then I think it's like your name and email, and then you can get the free templates. So some quick tips on leveraging social media. Again, you want to create a schedule for this and have some regular rhythms of communication. If it's a short campaign, like a 30-day campaign, rhythms are pretty frequent, probably every week. And of course, towards the end of a campaign, communication should be more rigorous as you try to push to either, fill in the gap of the remaining goal, or even try to move as far beyond the goal as you can and raise as much money as possible. You want to stay relevant and give your audience something they can value in return. Something that speaks to them, something that gives them something to think about or participate in. Your posts can be attention grabbing, so something that will stop them from scrolling along. So being able to sort of create and think strategically along the lines of what is compelling to your audience, compelling text, compelling graphics. And I think along the lines of just that content creation, Rob is going to talk a little bit more using AI to help you craft that really compelling content in a very efficient way that is actually saves a lot of time by running it through AI, ChatGPT. And then you'll want to drive engagement by asking your community to share their stories. You don't want this campaign to be a one-sided monologue. You want it to be a two-sided dialogue. You want to be able to share the organization's experience and invite others to share their stories as a result of the impact that you've made on them, or how they've made an impact, or just basically the impact that they've had participating. And then eventually, once you have developed a trust among your community, you've created a relationship with them, then you can convert them into taking action along your campaign. So these are just a few social media examples. As you can see on the far left of your screen, we have one of those attention grabbing graphics, give child marriage the finger. It's not the middle finger, don't worry. But yeah, it's a really great sort of play on words there with the image. The center picture has this story of a woman who is like in a process of healing. So I believe, that is something of value, can add nourishment to your community and more explanation of your goals and mission. And then on the far right, we have this woman just sharing why she fundraises and how it supports something that's very close to her heart and her family. So yeah, that was just a little bit about, definitely try, leveraging social media. It's not, the end all be all, but it's definitely one component of your campaign. Right now, we're just going to talk a little bit about creating the actual, the actual skeleton of the campaign landing page that will be used to receive your donations and where you'll be putting your appeal text. So on COSBOX, we make it really easy. We have out of the box campaign templates that you can quickly customize to your own brand without any IT person required. And so it's really simple to just open a campaign, type in your campaign title, select the type of peer-to-peer crowdfunding you're doing, and then going in and customizing all the details. Highly recommend adding varied media content. So maybe not just telling your story via text, but also with graphics and video. The second part is just to set up your goals, your metrics that will be displayed on the landing page. You'll put in your default appeal text. Set up the welcome email to your fundraisers. The welcome email, by the way, is automatically sent out upon sign up of each individual. You'll want to set up your share settings and another opportunity to add a compelling image, title, and description. And then you will want to set up that donation form. We do have all of today's marketing technology in our form, and you have a lot of options to customize that form with different custom questions if you need to ask your donors something specific. So I'm just going to stop my screen and share for just 2 minutes, and then I'm going to hand it back to Rob. But let me share just a couple campaign examples. Here we go. So we're going to take a look again back at Joss's, just because I really loved the way they crafted their campaign. So they have this collage of graphics, and then they really, parsed out all of the data, all the metrics here. Did you know there are 15,000 plus classes, right? They listed how many classes and activities they offer. They told the donors how many seniors attend the classes, and then how many locations are offering their programming. And then on the right column, they have this really nice custom graphic that explains all of the activities that are happening and a breakdown of the different categories of activities that are offered. And then what I really love is this personal testimony in the form of a video from some of the seniors who benefit from their classes and activities. So it gives a really personal and very thorough look at their programming and what the donations actually do. Where is the money going? What's happening with it? It's fully explained there. Amigos does a lot of community-based fundraising, and this was one of their most successful campaigns recently. So they have this really personalized touch here, this message, and then explaining to donors how they can contribute through the donation form, explaining what Amigos does and is, and then they have a lot of these stats again across their, they're running programming across the Americas, and how many people receive financial assistance, and then they have all of their fundraisers here at the bottom. And then active admission is just another example of this is an activity more of like walkathon, runathon, activity challenge based campaign. And they also use custom graphics a lot. They have a great donate button here, the join the campaign at the top with the persistent scroll down. And this was the one where I said they really detailed out their specific goals in a really creative way. They also use team fundraising pages here. Sorry, my page is not loading that well, but they have partner orgs, and they have individuals raising funds together. So here's just an example of how people can be members of one team and have their funds represented cumulatively. I'm gonna jump back to my slides real quick. And then I believe I'm passing it back to Rob. Let me just check here. Yes, passing it back to Rob.
All right. Thank you for those examples. I actually have probably 1 or 2 more examples to share as we get started on this section. So Jenna went over just some campaign site examples. So you can use COSBOX to create those campaign sites, no coding required, design it, all that stuff. But then a big part of what goes into a campaign site is actually the content that you put in. So we found that at COSBOX, a lot of folks find it super easy to set up a peer-to-peer campaign through our platform. But one of the biggest things that they spend a lot of time on, not only on the planning part of setting the fundraising goals, which we talked about, but they spend a lot of time on creating the content, the fundraising appeal, the donation receipt, the social media calendar, the email appeals, the fundraising toolkit. It's a lot of marketing and communications activities that you need to do as a fundraiser. So one of the things that we found really helpful over here at COSBOX, and we've been talking a lot about this through several other webinars and some of the resources that we have, is how do you actually use AI and generative AI to create first drafts of a lot of this content. So instead of sitting in front of your computer, sitting in a committee and spending weeks upon weeks of planning, how can you get to a really great first draft and use that to propel your creation of these assets into this content a lot quicker than having to waste a lot of time staring at a blank screen. So there's a few things that I wanted to show you through this third-party tool called ChatGPT. We are not affiliated with ChatGPT at all. We just like the product, and we find it to be very helpful in our own workflows over here at COSBOX, but also we think is very useful for a lot of our users. And one of the things that we're exploring is how we can directly integrate some of these tools into COSBOX, not only for fundraising planning, like how you can create a fundraising plan for the whole year, but then how can you generate all of the social media content, all the email content that you need as part of your campaign, then how you can use COSBOX alongside of that to generate donation pages and peer-to-peer campaign sites. Basically, in a nutshell, ChatGPT is this AI tool where you can use that will answer any question that you have, as well as write and generate any type of text that you want it to. So one of the cool things about ChatGPT is that it's grown very quickly. So it has 100 million users within 2 months. And you may have heard about this through headlines and things like that. And it's one of the really helpful tools. There's a lot of hype, yes, but it's also very helpful, which helps you save a bunch of time. I liken it like a calculator, but for the English language, where if you're not great at writing, or if you don't have a lot of time, you can just shortcut your way to creating a ton of great content very easily. So what I want to do is kind of show you, I'll share my screen a little bit. You can go to this link over here and you can create your own account. It's free. And you can follow along, or you could just do this after the call. So you can access ChatGPT, this content generation tool. And with ChatGPT, I'll go over a few things over here. I know we're running a little bit short on time, but I want to kind of show you a fundraising appeal, how you can create one, how you can create donation tiers, your donation receipt, create some communications and social media posts, like things like that. So let me just share my screen. This is just another example of a peer-to-peer campaign site on COSBOX, Orangewood Challenge. This is really great. I really love this. They use COSBOX to build this, but I'm just using this as an example here because they have a fundraising appeal. So one of the things you can do with ChatGPT is that if you have an existing fundraising campaign that you're repurposing into a peer-to-peer, or maybe you have a great first draft already, you can just copy and paste, let's say, your content, and then you can use ChatGPT to rewrite it. Let's say I will prompt it saying, I'm running a peer-to-peer campaign. Bear with me as I'm just typing out. This is, for example, other ones I'll just kind of jump to it. Below is a fundraising appeal. Revise it for spelling, grammar, and flow. Change the tone to upbeat and excited. So one of the things you can do with ChatGPT is that if you have an existing piece of content, it'll actually help you rewrite as well as spell check and grammar, kind of whatever it is. So my prompt over here is basically saying, hey, here's my fundraising appeal draft I have. Please kind of just revise it for spelling, grammar, and flow, just to make it more readable. But also, I want to change the tone because my writing is kind of dry and not really exciting. And I want it to be a little more markety, so it compels people to get to take action. So what I can do is I can just take this general content, and this is just a direct copy and paste from the campaign site. It's really focused, when you read over here, it's really focused on kind of the facts of what's going to go on. And I want to kind of change it so it's more exciting, so people are more compelled to participate. So what ChatGPT would do is it kind of takes this content and then it generates a new version of this content that follows whatever you're prompted to do. So when I glance at this, it is a lot more exciting. It takes a lot of the original pieces of content and it does produce an output that I can just copy and paste back into my campaign site. So it can do something like that. Prior to our webinar, and because of the interest of time, I'm not going to kind of type everything out. One of the things you can also do is kind of prompt ChatGPT to create your fundraising appeal if you're just starting from scratch. So I wrote this prompt in the beginning, a little bit earlier, about how I'm creating a peer-to-peer campaign, average goal of 27,000, which is our benchmark. And I'm doing a STEM program for after school. We want to raise funds for a summer program. And then I want to get my network, my community to create personal fundraising pages. I'm giving you some details such as that, giving you like starting in May, just some basic facts. And then what's really important is I'm prompting ChatGPT to give me a 200-word fundraising appeal that goes specifically on my peer-to-peer campaign site. And then I'm noting the tone of it and the feel of it. So what it comes back with immediately is a title, which is pretty exciting. It's casual, it's lighthearted with a superhero language. And then it comes back with a fundraising appeal that is pretty much like 80, 90% there. So it gives me a great first draft over here, which I can tailor and tweak or discuss with my team members for language. And then we can just put this into our peer-to-peer campaign site. So this basically just took me about 10 seconds to do. And then it will save you about an hour or two worth of writing time, another probably hour or two of revision time and collaboration time with your colleagues. So that's a lot of time you can save in order to do something else. The other thing that you can do with ChatGPT is figure out donation tiers. So what's really important on a donation page, such as like a peer-to-peer campaign site, is after a donor clicks on make a donation, then you have a donation form that pops up with different donation tiers, but also descriptions with those tiers. Specifically for a peer-to-peer campaign, this could be different levels of giving. So for Orangewood, they basically just noted, okay, this $50 is bronze, $100 is silver, and so on and so forth, which is a great start. But one of the things I'm really interested in my peer-to-peer campaign is making sure these descriptions have something that could resonate with the campaign idea as well as the audience. So I asked ChatGPT over here that our average donation is $75, and then I wanted to generate five donation amounts and descriptions associated with this, so I can use this in our donation page, but also use it in our marketing. So it came back with a donation amount, and then basically a level of giving. They made this fun and as well as lighthearted, just because I prompted it in the beginning to be lighthearted and fun. So all of these descriptions follow that theme. And I think what's interesting is that it gives you these interesting ideas for your descriptions, but also it gives you a description too that you can use and repurpose. So this is a great way to do it. From a fundraising perspective, $75 is the average. So it made it the middle donation amount, and it gave lower donation amounts as well as higher donation amounts. And I think one thing that's really interesting about this is that it's graduated, as in like it starts with 25, then it doubles to 50, then another 25 goes to 75, and then it doubles after that from 75 to 150 to 300. It's actually a really great fundraising best practice, because we see that not everything has to go in a linear line. It can follow a different curve. And this is a great example of how ChatGPT knows a little bit about fundraising to make it quite dangerous in terms of helping you get your campaign running. So that's another example of how you can use ChatGPT and AI. Another area that we see a lot of people spend a lot of time on is actually creating the donation receipt template. Unfortunately, a lot of users on our platform just use the basic default one that we set as COSBOX. And I remember 10 years ago, I wrote that template, and that's not a great template to use. So one of the things that you should always do is take that donation receipt template and modify it for language and tone and make it personal to your organization. So this is what I asked ChatGPT to do, is say, hey, again, tone is fun and inviting, but I need a donation receipt that's authored and signed by our ED to make it more personal. So what ChatGPT did with that prompt is it looked at the campaign appeal that was created, it looked at the donation tiers, and then it created a template that I can use as a starting point to put into my peer-to-peer campaign. So you know that there's some no merge tags over here, which you can use on COSBOX as well to personalize it. But this is actually a really great template where it notes the donation amount, it notes the nonprofit name, and then it references the campaign. And then it builds community with a statement of how, together we're making a difference. And then they're thanking the donor and assigning it with the ED's name. So I think this is 10 times better than like a default one that we set at COSBOX. And this is something that you can get to by using an AI tool. All right. Let's say we want to use this campaign as well, and then want to create an email communications timeline. A lot of folks spend a ton of time or to hire a bunch of consultants to actually create an email outline. I think consultants are great to use, but then they should be used for their specific expertise and focusing on the nuances of drafting an email or running a campaign, some of the very high value, added value stuff. So one of the things that not only can digital marketing consultants offload, but also your Marcom team can offload as well, is you can just use AI for this. Let's say we have a peer-to-peer campaign. I wanted to create an email outline for a 2-week campaign. So that's what it did. I prompted it to create an outline for what the email plan would be. It gave me subject lines. It gave me like kind of an outline for the content. And then this can be built out into specific emails that are sent to our list. So I think this is a great way just to fast track how you can create a communications outline. I should find this pretty mind-boggling of how accurate it can be. I wouldn't say this is at 100%, but it gets you to a point where you and your team don't have to start from scratch. You can actually have something to look at, to make revisions on, to tailor, and to focus your efforts on the most important things of your campaign. All right. A few other things too. So let's say what I want ChatGPT to do is take this campaign progress email that is suggested and actually build out an email content for it. So this is my prompt over here saying, hey, write a 200-word campaign progress email. We raised 15,000 so far. And then our top fundraisers are John, Kelly, and Tom. Yeah, just some random names. So that's what it did. It gave me a nice little email template to use where it calls out kind of our progress, calls out the top fundraisers, and then it has just some words of encouragement to kind of keep the campaign going. Again, this gives you to 80%. I would have added some links, some stronger calls to action for folks to ante up their peer-to-peer fundraising or to make a donation. And those are some of the things that whether that your team can do or that your consultant can do by not having to spend all of their time or billable hours on drafting our first draft content. I think this is one of the last things I want to share is how you can create a 2-week social media plan. This is very similar to the email plan, but you can also use this for social media. So it basically just lays out like your post schedule and what it's about. And then you can follow this plan to share on social media. So we don't have this integration into COSBOX yet. This is a third-party tool, but it is one great way to save you a bunch of time as you're planning your peer-to-peer campaign. I'll hand it back to Jenna.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's such a time-saving tool. Let me just jump back to our screen. I know it's 4 o'clock. I don't know, maybe if we want to just jump to the Q&A. The only thing that I had left to share was just how to measure success. It's essentially to evaluate the data and to make changes and be sort of fluid through the campaign to be able to identify and adjust strategy if you are not seeing the return as you had mentioned, as you had planned. It could be like, going back to ChatGPT and just adjusting and tweaking the content a little bit or targeting specific people. Groups of people. But yeah, just our key takeaways here from today are that peer-to-peer is one of the most easy and effective ways to raise more, even twice the amount of funds than your original goal. You'll want to create SMART goals, make sure everything is very specific to your needs, recruit your fundraisers and equip them well with some templates and some content to get up and running. And then, of course, leverage ChatGPT or AI to streamline your content creation. Pick a really easy to use and best in class fundraising platform like COSBOX. Be flexible and pivot your strategy. And then bonus, it's not just about the numbers. This peer-to-peer fundraising is all about building relationships for more meaningful impact. You can get up and running on COSBOX, as Rob had mentioned, and create these really personalized appeals and donation forms to really easily design, launch, and manage your upcoming campaigns. We have these additional resources that we listed throughout our time today. They're listed here, and you'll receive these in our follow-up email. Again, you can schedule a demo, an on-demand demo or a one-on-one demo with me, and we can talk about how you can get up and running on COSBOX. We have a lot of, we have affordable pricing for all small to medium nonprofits. And so now, I just want to open up for questions. If folks want to stay on a couple minutes extra, I'm sure they might want to do that. So Rob, do you want to take a couple questions?
Yeah, sure. So let's look in the chat real fast. Yeah, so if you have any questions, if you still want to stay on, feel free to chat us in or use the Q&A function. We have a few that have come in so far, so we'll just run through this. All right, so David is asking, is there a way for peer-to-peer fundraisers to send out their appeals to potential donors with COSBOX? So yes, so folks can send out their appeals in their pages, essentially through some of the sharing functions that we have on our platform. So there's not only social media sharing, but also there's email sharing. A lot of folks that we see who create personal pages do it on mobile, so on their phone. You'll notice that on mobile it's very easy to share things, whether it's through a text message or through email, since they have their contacts built in. So we see a lot of our users doing that to get their pages out there. So it's already built into their devices as well. We have another question from Mary Beth. Mary Beth is asking, how can you help peer-to-peer fundraisers overcome hesitancy to ask friends, family, and other contacts? Their big hurdle is that nobody on the board, staff, et cetera, wants to put themselves out there. So I think this is very, very common. This is not something that's atypical for an organization where, especially if someone doesn't have a strong culture of peer-to-peer fundraising at their organization or staff giving or board giving, then there's a lot of hesitancy in terms of making a donation or asking their friends and family. So I think the first part, which is a longer term problem, is to answer the question, how do you solve kind of the culture, the giving culture of the organization? And that's beyond the scope of this discussion so far. But the second item is, like, what are some of the tactical things that you can do in order to get people to take action? The first part is to look outside of your board and staff, to look more holistically across your whole organization, as well as your supporters. Look at some of your top donors who, and then make an ask in terms of who's willing to ask their network to donate to the organization. You'll typically find a lot of great results, not from staff members or the board, but you'll find really great results from the people who have donated to the organization the most and the most consistently, specifically, like donations over time. So look at those folks, create like a small list, whether it's 10 people or 20 people or 50. Basically, just making sure that the folks on the list are the folks that will have the highest chance of asking their friends and family. And then from there, recruit them as your initial batch of peer-to-peer fundraisers. Because those folks believe in the organization, have donated to a lot, so they have a lot to say to their friends and family about their support. And getting them on board as a phase one during the quiet phase of your peer-to-peer campaign, where those folks are creating peer-to-peer pages, asking their friends and family. And then on the phase two, you open it up to board members to create pages as well. So that now they've seen an initial group of people who are super excited to jump on board. It's easier for the second wave of folks to jump on board because no one wants to be the leader. No one wants to be the first one in the pool. And then from there, you can waterfall this down to other audiences that may be less inclined to create a page, but also still willing to. So I would start there as a way to generate some traction. Leslie's asking the 14 content posts that GPT put together, would these posts that the nonprofit posts and everyone shares? Okay, so 14 content posts, that's probably some of the examples that I shared. So this would be like something that would assist you as a fundraiser or marcom professional, marketing communications professional, on creating some of the social media posts as well as the email content. So I would advise kind of using this as a first draft and then tweaking it and then finalizing it. And then you can either have some of that content, make it into a fundraising toolkit for your peer-to-peer fundraisers so they can just copy and paste and share with their audiences, or you as a marcom activity, you can take those email templates and blast it out to your audiences and donors. Another question is from Claudia. Claudia's asking, what is the lowest price for unlimited simultaneous appeals, etc.? I want to compare your price. Okay. Well, in a nutshell, at COSBOX, you can have unlimited peer-to-peer pages, unlimited campaign sites, unlimited donation forms on, I believe, any plan. So your plan could be very low. So I don't know your specific pricing that you're getting from other folks, but Jenna will be happy to schedule a time with you to chat in terms of your specific needs. And Jenna, that's Claudia from this group that you may want to chat with.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
Other questions?
Let's look at the chat real fast. Laura saying that our webinar is very informative. So that's good. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
We have folks asking if this deck will be available after the call. Yes, it will be available. We'll send it to you in the next day or two. Recordings will be sent out as well. So look out for that. It will be sent via email. So if you don't get it in the email by Monday, then if you could check your spam inbox, do me a favor and check that first. If you don't see it then feel free to ping us at support@cosbox.com, and we'll be sure to follow up with to see where that is. Doug asked earlier on in our session, based on some of the benchmarks I was sharing in terms of peer-to-peer pages that got activated. He's asking, do you know the percentage of personal pages that raised over $20? I don't have that off the top of my head. So since that wasn't how the data was sliced. But again, look at average donation though. Average total raise on a peer-to-peer page was about $7.95. So hopefully that is helpful. Okay. All right, we are severely over time. So I appreciate everybody's time here today. I guess Jen and I didn't do a good enough job of managing the time. So we'll try our best next time. Again, the recordings and video will be sent out in the next day or two. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, support@cosbox.com. If you're looking for more info about our product, feel free to go to cosbox.com/schedule-a-demo. We'll be happy to schedule a time with you, or you could just reply to that really annoying pop-up that pops up on our website, this guys, and then you can reply to that, and it'll go into a support inbox. And lastly, we do have tons of webinars coming up, as well as some free resources that always go out almost on like a weekly basis. So feel free to subscribe to our blog. We'll be happy to keep you in touch on the latest and greatest. Again, thank you so much for the time, and we look forward to helping you with peer-to-peer fundraising.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.